Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here. We have a conveyor belt of storm systems taking shape over the next 5 to 7 days. So let's break down the details for you and start off with the big picture on the satellite view this morning. Take a look out in the tropics first, because it's everything but active out there. It's been widespread Saharan dust coming off of Africa. We've got a lot of shear impacting portions of the Caribbean as well as into the Gulf of Mexico. Really, later on in the period, most of the ensemble members' guidance are hinting at maybe likely towards the end of August, we might be looking at a little bit more favorable development down here towards the Bahamas. But it's been very active across the Eastern Pacific. In fact, Hurricane Dora is still chugging out there since July 31st, and it's actually going to be crossing over the international date line today and become a typhoon, which is a rare feat. Doesn't happen very often. Last time that's actually happened was 6 years ago. But let's take a look where it's going to be really active, and it's highlighted over across the upper Midwest. We've got a storm complex that's going to be racing across, very high winds, and there's going to be another one coming in into the overnight hours. We just have a conveyor belt. The jet stream is extremely active up here coming off the Aleutian Islands, and these series of storm complexes are going to be coming out of southern portions of Canada and traversing across this path, bringing some very heavy rain, some damaging winds, and some big time isolated hail producers. And then further to the south, it's just the deepening ridge of high pressure is just relentless every single day, and there's really no let up in sight. In fact, we have another enhanced risk upgrade later on this afternoon across portions of Kansas City into the Topeka region. This is the same storm complexes. We're going to have another one get its act together later on this afternoon. So some of these could be pretty bumpy across Minneapolis, back into Milwaukee region, and then further south, back into St. Louis again. Man, they've been hit hard lately. Extended into the Paducah region, extending as far south as into Springfield. These are likely going to be damaging winds and some larger hail producers. And then really kind of going into the overnight hours, we'll have another system about 2 o'clock in the morning over the same areas across portions of Illinois. Those could reach into portions of Missouri again, and those will be racing across the Ohio Valley and eventually reach in portions of the Mid-Atlantic as we head into your Saturday time frame. With the same dynamics, we're going to have large hail and some damaging winds. They're going to be highlighted over the Ohio region, back into portions of Pennsylvania, could reach as far north as upstate New York. Buffalo could get in the action with some damaging winds up there, and those actually extend into northern New Jersey and even into New York City, and some of those actually could be little tornadic spin-ups. We do have some possibility concerns of or tornado or two up here in this region. There's going to be a small pocket of energy that's going to be draped across and impact portions of extreme portions of the Texas Panhandle and the western Oklahoma there, with their own big time larger hail and damaging winds. If you take a look at the kind of the elicity view over the next 48 hours, you can see where these convective bands really start to set up. So we'll have that one across portions of western Oklahoma into southern portions of Colorado, and then we'll have that other feature that comes through Missouri back into southern Illinois and extends into portions of Kentucky and Tennessee. Then we'll have that northern feature up here across Minnesota that goes to Wisconsin, and then on Saturday we'll have that feature that comes across portions of Pennsylvania into upstate New York and gets into a good part of Massachusetts as well as in Connecticut region during the day on Saturday. But as we go into Sunday, Monday, we just have again the relentless streak. So further to the south, it's all about the ridge of high pressure, dominating ridge, a lot of heat really draped across portions of the Pacific Northwest. That dives down into a good chunk of Texas again, back into the southeast regions. You can see where all the action is. Further to the north is where the jet stream's really going to be elongating, and we're just going to have a series of storm complexes that traverse across this same zone all next week. It's relentless, folks. So whenever you see kind of this question mark, comma Q shape of activity, that's indicative of a very intense low pressure center that's got some pretty intense winds on the southern flank of that storm system. And we're going to have another very heavy rain, very damaging winds and some larger hail are going to be associated with this one. And this is just a series of what's to come all week long. This is the setup on Monday, and we'll just have relentless setups, fishtailing down into the afternoon, evening time frame, getting back into the Paducah region, back into Jackson region again, into portions of Cincinnati, back into portions of the Charleston region. Those would be widespread, severe storms with that particular setup. And then there's the setup with another system coming in. So we've got on the vorticity map, with the ridge of high pressure further to the south, we just have deepening low pressure centers on the northern periphery of that ridge, and they're just going to be relentless coming out of the Aleutian Island regions, coming off the northwest flow, north of the ridge, and then diving east southeastward. And there's just going to be one after another, literally all week long. They've got a lot of moisture associated with it. So you've got well above average sea surface temperature anomalies down here in the Gulf of Mexico, extremely untouched. As we pull up more of a south wind that pulls in a lot of the water vapor, runs it across Texas, elevates the dew points, elevates the heat indices. That's why they've got widespread excessive heat advisories, heat warnings across these multiple regions. But once it takes advantage and gets a part of this upper level low, it kind of flattens out. And look at this, folks. That's some serious rain producers. These areas could get some very heavy, copious amounts of rain, setting up shop likely Sunday into Monday timeframe. Some of these areas could, in fact, this could actually end up being upgraded to a moderate risk for excessive rainfall. Very concerned about this convective banding really starting to take shape in this zone across portions of central Missouri, back into southern Illinois, back into portions of southern Indiana. Well, I do feel like we're going to be looking at training supercell thunderstorms on a conveyor belt, taking advantage of very high dew points, very high water content across this region. Whenever you see 2 inch per hour at this time of year, August, the middle of August, it's a pretty dry month, right? Middle of August, hitting at 2.5 inches per hour potential. That's what the atmosphere is capable of. Yes, you could be looking at some very intense heavy rain and definitely some flash flooding. I'm expecting flash flood watches across this region by the time we get closer to this event. And this whole area is no stranger to heavy rainfall as of late. This is the last 14 days, folks. Look where all the rain is, folks. So yes, we just have these relentless systems, and all these areas in purple and this white, you're getting up the leaderboard. This is over the last 2 weeks, folks. You're looking at 8 to 14 inches of rainfall over these kind of the same areas are going to get hit hard over the next 7 days. So right across portions of Missouri, back into western, Kentucky, western Tennessee, those areas have already seen, double digits in some of these areas, and they're going to get hit hard again, because here's the rainfall depiction over just the next 5 days, right? So further to the south, that's where the ridge is. The monsoon is finally getting a little bit active. It's not very active, but they'll take what they can get out there in the desert Southwest. But really, you got a southern branch, you got a northern branch. So the southern branch, where it's going to flatten out, is really going to be heavy rainfall across Kansas, across central Missouri, back into portions of southern Illinois, back into Indiana, especially into Kentucky. And then we'll have that northern branch coming out of Minnesota, back into Wisconsin, and that goes into portions of Michigan. That's over the next 5 days where you're going to see that heavier rainfall, and then a little bit lighter amounts as you extend and past into portions of Pennsylvania and getting into upstate New York. So, but it's just the same deal, folks. As we go into Wednesday, we'll have another system. We'll have another little vorticity that comes out of Canada, enters portions of Montana and the Dakotas, and then really starts to get its act together again, as we get into Thursday. Starts to really wind up back into these same areas across Minnesota, across Wisconsin again. That deepens into Iowa, goes back into portions of Illinois again. Very high wind threat. You can see some of the tight isobars really starting to tighten up across these regions. And there's the jet streak, folks. I mean, this is a conveyor belt coming out of the Aleutian Islands. Very powerful jet streak coming across these regions. And then you have the dip. You got the little bit of buckle. You got the high pressure to the south side. and then all the active weather is on the northern periphery of that. So there's just a very, very active setup across these regions, as one after another, 4, 5, 6 storm systems over the next 7 days are going to be in the same areas. Relentless storm systems are going to be traversing across and originating from the northwest and diving down to the east southeastward. Even going into Friday, folks, that's the 500 millibar. Notice one thing that does actually happen as we get deeper into the week, and especially into next weekend. Notice the alignment of the storm starts to creep a little bit upward. That's indicative further south, as we'll have a ridge of high pressure just expanding and deepening even more, and expanding and cultivating, engulfing even more states with that ridge of high pressure. That will push the storm complexes even further north. So yes, we're talking possibly southern Canada by then, into the upper peninsula of Wisconsin, into the upper peninsula of, getting into Michigan, and those will extend into likely getting into southern Canada there, as we have yet another active storm coming in off the eastern Pacific, just continues to race across portions of the west. And then going into the weekend, there you see it, folks, as the ridge will continue to expand further south. That puts the jet stream even further north. So it would likely be mostly even actually into southern Canada by then, with the active storm track coming across. Will eventually, once they reach into the northeast, could impact again portions that don't need it, Vermont, New Hampshire, and back into Maine again. But there is the ridge, folks. This heat wave, if you're looking for a break, you are not going to get it. It is just not going to let up in Texas by any means. There's some serious heat, and we could be breaking, record heat for the month. I mean, this is a relentless thing, and it's just not going to go away anytime soon. So in fact, going into late next weekend, not only does it expand, it deepens and really engulfs multiple states and lifts northward. So most of the U.S. going into next week is going to be well above average, folks. Well above average in the middle of August, your hottest time of the year. So we've got widespread triple-digit heat underneath that ridge of high pressure. And then the more this expands, the more states it's going to engulf. And obviously, the more states we're going to have that heat dome and going to be drying the atmosphere out. And the greater the probability that it's going to be lifting that jet stream even further north. But that likely won't happen until the end of next weekend. Before that, we got a lot of storms to be concerned about. So the breakdown over the next 10 days, folks, you can see where all their white is. You can see where the most dominating ridge is. Highlighted over Texas again, most of Oklahoma. But if you live just to the north of there, you're going to be in that conveyor belt of just heavier rainfall. So this is the global guidance. The mesoscale guidance will actually probably be even greater than this, but it kind of gives you a depiction on where the heavier rains is going to be, traversing across. And these are all going to be originating from the Aleutian Islands. They're going to be diving and really highlighting over across portions of north central regions, across the Ohio Valley, across into the Mid-Atlantic, and then into the Northeast, while Florida continues to remain on the wet side. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Be on the lookout tomorrow for my fall outlook. I will be releasing that tomorrow, so definitely stay tuned for that, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.